me because I recognised that I had no credentials to speak of, and that Bibhuti was taking a big chance on me, you know, taking the leap of faith that my word was good and that I would fulfil any promises I made to him. So once I felt that I had his trust, I think we opened up to each other quite quickly, and I think the communications we had, we discussed things in a very deep and meaningful way. I think we were quite unguarded with each other, and through that spirit of openness, we discovered that there are actually many things that we have in common. And despite the cultural and the geographical distance between us, we discovered we were kindred spirits in lots of ways. So both vegetarians, both into fitness, although me not so much anymore, but our views on life and our sense of spirituality.
And did the distance, the fact that you were unable to see each other, but you were writing to this this email address somewhere out there and going back and forth, did the distance actually allow you both to be more unguarded with each other? Did it allow you to confide things which maybe if you just met formally initially you wouldn't have been able to?
I think so, absolutely. And over the course of that initial correspondence, things that happened in my life which were difficult, or I went through some dark times, and I would feel able to share those things with Bibhuti, because face to face there is always a fear of judgment. There's a fear that one will be misconstrued or judged in some way, whereas when it's just words on a computer screen, you do feel that extra sense of freedom to open yourself up to another person, and that allowed us to reach a level of mutual trust and understanding very quickly, which may not have happened if we'd met under different circumstances. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I think had we been closer, it would have been better, I think. So a lot of explanations I had to give to him because with the back-to-back mails all the time, if something was actually wrong, then he wouldn't understand actually that pick up the point. He mailed me back again, actually just explained the scenario, actually how this happened, what are the things could be actually that put into the perspective. So the distance between we guys actually that too much, and across the 7 seas we cannot actually that exchange the words properly, or that the body language we cannot see each other. Only that only one thing was there, just I can see his photographs, he can see my photographs on Google. So that was the only that communications we had at that time. So it was clearly quite difficult. That took us actually that 5 years just to complete the book, perhaps. Otherwise it could have been finished in a year or two.
But it may have been a very different book. I mean,
absolutely.
One of the things I read in a piece was that Bibhuti, you were upset at one point because Stephen's your brother had died from cancer. Your father was going through it, and you had not told him anything because you don't want to necessarily suddenly tell somebody you don't really know about this. When you found out about it, why were you upset, Bibhuti?
No, he didn't actually reveal me because it's completely actually very personal, and secondly that we were communicating so much that very in the regular manner. So I thought actually that I am neglected or the sideline somewhere down the line, because the person who is talking to him actually every day, so and he has skipped me somehow. I was really upset actually because of that only, and I thought he should have shared that the entire scenario, actually whatever happened there. But I was expecting that, but that didn't happen. It was my bad luck perhaps actually, but I felt very bad.
That's like a prime example of trying to do, it's not just a biographer and a subject, but it's like you're actually doing two different cultures, and this is a prime example of English reticence, if I would.
Absolutely. Yes, and when I discovered from Bibhuti just how hurt and upset he was that I had kept this information from him, with this very English notion of trying to protect somebody else from the pain that I was going through. And yet he told me that it was very important to him that he shared my pain. That was an example of the difference between the two cultures right there. And when I heard just how upset he was that I'd kept that from him, I was devastated, and I was very apologetic, and I vowed after that never to leave anything behind, never to leave him in the dark again, always be as honest with him as I could.
So when you finally meet, were you nervous? But you guys, when you finally, after this like 2-year email pen friendship, you're actually meeting. How nervous were you?
Yeah, it's the extreme level of happiness actually, I can say. The nervousness came out actually in that way. I don't disclose it, what exactly went through in that manner. But a lot of curiosity also actually, just so that lot of excitement to see the man actually how he should be, and what kind of that expressions he can give us. So it was completely actually very unpredictable, and we were too eager just to actually meet each other. That after exchanging so many things, and we have not actually met so far, so it was something that actually something was missing there.
And for me, I think I was concerned that in person, Bibhuti would still find me as trustworthy as he did on the page when we were writing to each other. I felt a great pressure to bring to him the best version of myself, so that he would recognise just how serious I was about the project, but also just how genuine my affection for him had already become at that point. And I guess it was a strange, you used the pen pal analogy before, and with our face-to-face meeting, it became almost a scene from a romantic comedy. You know, these star-crossed lovers who are meeting for the first time after 2 years, and there is a sense of trepidation on both sides, and then immediately a sense of relief when you discover that actually you do get on.
I mean, no, it is like it is indeed like a courtship process in a way, because you are both also presenting the best versions of yourself, and it's like an audition that you're coming together. But were you worried though? I should mention that the book Manfire, which is a wonderful read, is a very unusual book because it alternates between the voice of Bibhuti, who is narrating his story about all why he gets into breaking world records and extreme sports, and then there is the entire, which is the real story of his life, and then it alternates with an Englishman who is not exactly Stephen, who has come to India to help him break one record, which might be the last one he does or not. And so that part is fiction. So it's a really intriguing mix of fact and fiction alternating back and forth. And I wanted to ask you about why you decided to go with that format. But before that, you said you come and you guys meet and you're really relieved because you like each other and you're sort of, you're what I think one paper called the man crush on each other is intact. But then were you worried whether you could write a biography of this person because he's now your friend?
Well, actually, that was part of the reason I decided that I would fictionalize it to some extent, because having met him, I realized there was such a great deal of him to get down on the page, to turn into a story. That the man has so many qualities that it's impossible to capture them all in a way which could remain objective. And in a biography, I think you do need to be objective. You can't hold your subject up on a pedestal. I think you do have to achieve a balance. Whereas for me, I was so enamored of him at that point, and that was a mutual relationship that we shared, that I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to be too objective. So I thought, okay, with Bibhuti's permission, I had this idea of let's put a twist on it and fictionalize his story to some degree, partly by including an English character who is completely a figment of my imagination, although he does share some similarities with my journey and my point of view. But I think by introducing that purely fictional element, it then allowed me to tackle the newly created fictional version of Bibhuti in such a way that I could still bring to bear all of those things that a novelist has to do in order to make a story palatable. You have to introduce drama, you have to introduce conflict, there has to be this thread running through a story which a reader can follow, which will give them satisfaction, entertainment, all of those things. That wouldn't have been possible with a straight biography. So that was the reason I decided to then turn it into this very strange hybrid of kind of a semi-fictional biographical novel, I guess.
So it was a mutual understanding that we agreed actually both of us, and secondly I got in the meantime I got one more offer actually from a Marathi writer that he wanted to do the biography, so that is why I agreed actually that without any fuss.
So when you first read the final draft, Bibhuti, what did you think? Did it sound like you? You know, there's part where your character is narrating your life story. Did you feel like it sounded like you?
It was quite interesting when I got the first final draft in 2014. I passed on to my student just to read it out because the excitement was too much. So I couldn't actually accommodate myself actually to just read it and digest it somehow. So my student read it actually overnight, and he gave me that overview, that the brief, how the book is written. Then I thought that actually I should get into it and go by page. So that was something actually history that for the first time I read a novel for the first time in my career. And I thought actually my dream has come true, because I have become a complete man, whether the book will be on the stand or not, but I have the draft. Thank you.
And while he was going through this process, which was very difficult and unfamiliar to him, imagine you're writing an event, you're writing a version of your own life, and it must be very strange to see yourself exposed in that way on the page. So I knew that it would be an emotionally difficult process for him. So I just sat back and let him have his experience of reading the book for the first time. And meanwhile, I was back in England waiting on an email from him to say that he'd finished. Waiting.
Terrified.
I was absolutely terrified. I thought, because it was 5 days until I heard back from him. And
I kept on asking actually when the draft will be ready, just because it's already actually 5 years. So he argued with me, no, it's not actually 5 years, you have miscalculated, it is 4 years.
But I thought, okay, the longer it went on without hearing back from him, I thought, I've done something really bad here. I've got him all wrong, I've offended him in some way, I've failed to capture an understanding of India, I've failed to capture an understanding of him. I've completely let everybody down, and I was just a bundle of nerves. So when I did finally hear back from him, and his reaction was so positive and so heartfelt and so moving, I just broke down in tears. I was so relieved. I broke down, I wept, and then I got back in touch with him, and we shared a mutual celebration of the fact that we had achieved what we set out to do. And it was a beautiful moment.
That's amazing.
Same thing happened actually from my side also, because I also actually cried a lot. It's because of happiness, actually, the extreme level of happiness I got at that.
Wow. One of the things I wanted to get into also a little bit in the subject matter. So I wanted you to talk a little bit, Bibhuti, about, I know you grew up, you're a boy from this state, you grew up near Tata, and I've read that you grew up in a very poor family. So how did you go from there and decide that this thing, doing these world records for these endurance or extreme sports was the way you wanted to go? That you didn't want to be a cricketer or something like that.
I wanted to be a different person altogether, because born in a poor with limited resources, I had nothing actually to do in my life. I almost actually gave up. At the age of 12, I was forced to go out of my home, and I did a lot of actually the odd works, like as a rag picker, as a picker, as a child labor. My vision was to have some education at least. That was my primary responsibility, primary task. I chose in my life that education should be the primary aim of mine, and everything else. And the second part was my sports background. I was quite rugged outside, but inside actually I'm very sensible like Stephen. We both have shared actually very everything common. And at the age of 12, you cannot imagine that how you sustain how you survive your life. But somehow I managed myself, I controlled myself, and staying in a chawl, like a shanty in the slum areas, doing all sort of that odd jobs all alone. And I didn't miss the school, but I was dropped out because of I couldn't actually pay the fee. And I changed 3 schools in my secondary sessions, like 8th standard and 9th standard and 10th standard. I could somehow actually that seek to appear in the exam in the 10th standard in the middle of the 10th class. Then that made me actually more stronger. I thought I have the potential. I studied my potential actually inside me. I can do it better, and I'll do it. And that was my mission. My vision was be educated, and I cannot actually meet the target. Doing something different, then sports is the another part of which I can pursue. And in sports, I thought actually what should be the sport disciplines I can just actually take up. Cricket is not my cup of tea because you need a lot of influence. Again, actually, I saw that individual sports will be better enough. So I took up gymnastics on my own, and I had no teacher for gymnastics also. It is completely actually the imagination, how can I do this? I didn't see the movie at the age of 17 or 18. And in my village, we saw the electricity when I graduated. So you can better understand actually how remote the village is. It's just 70 kilometers from here towards Paradip. But I didn't stay actually in my village. At the age of 12, I fled. Somehow I managed. I completed my SSC, what you call HSC here, the high school certificates. I went to the college with a half pant. I was only the first student there who went to the college. We attended the college, actually the classes in half pant all through my 2 years of 11th and 12th standard. Then in graduation, I came back to Cuttack and gave tuitions. So did a lot of, again actually that hard work. But I didn't give up the sports, which was my passion. So nowadays it has become actually addiction. But I couldn't actually live without sports. And I completed my primary responsibility to become a graduate. Then I became a postgraduate. I went on actually to do journalism. Then I got good offer actually from Times of India. And the most important part is I have taken a very good decision actually to shift into Mumbai after graduation. That was the best part what I have done. I don't have the regret actually that I should do something for my sake. But there was not that much opportunity. But I wanted to be at the high. I wanted to be at the top. Being a sole man, being all alone. I have not taken actually any support from anyone. I have not actually begged for any assistance from anyone because I am a self-respecting human being. I have never actually begged. I always try to. If you cannot believe that in 5 rupees I got married, and that was not my money, my wife's money. So that was my condition because I am completely actually against the dowry system. I am not a religious man. I am a philosopher. I am a spiritual man. That is what I did it somehow. There are so many, there are millions of people, millions of children actually they go without food. But we waste actually a lot of food in the 5-star hotels. I don't take anything actually outside. He knows better than anybody else perhaps. He's on the same table. I'm sitting actually just talking to him, talking to his wife. But they offered me actually many times. Finally they thought that actually that we should give it up. That this man will not actually oblige us. It's not a question of obliging. It's a question of actually how I'm ethical, how I maintain my principle. So that is the best part actually God has given to me. And God has given actually that much strength or that power that I can sustain my life actually all alone. So what I did. And going to Mumbai actually, it's a very big city. From Cuttack to, and I started my journey actually from this city, Bhubaneswar, taking the train with 126 rupees in my pocket. I left the college hostel and straight away went to Mumbai and did a lot of odd jobs again. And the only thing I had actually to fill my stomach, that was my martial arts and gymnastics. I opened the martial arts and gymnastics classes by reaching over there in the next 15 days. So that was something actually that fed my stomach. So I didn't actually go empty stomach all the night. After so many years, after 4 to 5 years, I thought actually that I'm doing actually the same thing what others are doing. There are so many black belts, there are so many martial arts teachers, there are so many reporters. So, but I should not actually restrict myself actually in that barrier. I have to break the barrier and expand my horizon. Then I thought I should do something. One of my students, he came to the class with the book, the old book of Guinness Book of World Records. He said that actually, sir, you can do better than anybody else. You have that much potential, you have that much strength, and you can do actually all sort of that physical fitness exercises more than anyone else. So I just actually gave a second thought to that and went through all sort of that Guinness Book of World Records. Limca was not actually launched at that point of time. So just went through all the pages of Guinness. Then I thought actually that my area is the endurance and the human story. So I found a few of the records which is suiting my caliber. I took up the backhand push-ups. I thought actually it was real actually back-breaking. I have broken my wrist maybe actually thrice or 4 times. So finally I just got into it. And the first record was the backhand push-ups for the Guinness Book of World Records. Before that I attempted for Limca, and it took me 10 years at least. 10 years to enter into the Guinness Book of World Records. And Limca automatically registered that record, and it was backhand push-ups for 819 times in 1 hour. That was completely nonsense. You do push-ups actually this way, I do push-ups this way. So, and also actually the tragedy involved into it. The first record, I broke my wrist. I took that permission. Those days, you don't have the email facilities. There was no digital world at all. So we exchanged through the Indian Post, like that, writing the letters. So you get always actually that reply from the Guinness people that 6 months, 8 months. So till 6 months and 8 months, you cannot actually wait, because to give the record a shot, you have to be practically that you have to practice all the time. That every day you cannot actually skip. Once you skip 1 day, you have to go back actually 3 days to square up. So, so record breaking is like that. So there was no pause.
So how many records do you have right now, Guinness?
I have 8 records. The latest record actually Tata Festival that you went over, but I didn't really get the chance to meet you. It was the back to back or the clashing to each other. And that was the last record, actually 8 record, and 16 in Limca Book of Records. And 16 plus 8, 24 records so far.
Wow.
And perhaps actually the highest in India, perhaps in this category, we have the big beards, we have the big nails, we have the big long hairs, but we don't have this kind of record actually that involved with the physical training at the extreme level of physical fitness.
I wanted to, we hear the records and of course we applaud because they sound wonderful, but as you alluded to, you break your wrist trying to do it. So one of the most interesting things that you deal with in the book is about Vibhuti's approach to paint.